Have you ever wondered why we accept working for hours, putting up with pressure, and maybe even burning ourselves out just to receive pieces of paper with a few numbers printed on them? Take a look at the $100 bill in your wallet. It costs less than 15 cents to print. You cannot eat it. You cannot wear it. But the world revolves around it, and we call it money. But in reality, it can be seen as an illusion that the entire world has agreed to believe in. While you have to sweat for every dollar you earn, banks can create billions of dollars with just the press of a button. And every time they do that, the value of the money in your pocket becomes a little smaller. That is why everything feels more and more expensive, even though you are still working hard. So what is this system really? And can we escape from these illusions? Let us break down the truth together. What is money, really, and where does it come from? To understand why we spend our lives chasing paper and numbers, let us go back in time with BoBo and look at what money really is. At its core, money is not a physical invention like a light bulb or an engine. It is a collective agreement, a shared belief humans created to make society work. In the earliest days, BoBo faced the problem of barter. If he had a chicken and wanted to trade it for a stone axe, he would be stuck if the axe owner did not want chicken, but wanted salt instead. To solve this problem, BoBo and everyone else agreed to use a middle item that people would accept in exchange for goods. This was called commodity money. Depending on where BoBo lived, money could be salt, shells, or even weapons. These things had value not just because they were useful, but because people believed they could trade them for something else. Money then took another step forward around 770 BC in China. BoBo no longer had to carry bags of shells because the first metal coins appeared, making trade easier and more accurate. Over time, paper money was born as a powerful promise. At first, it was only a receipt proving that the king or the bank was holding an equal amount of gold for BoBo. Back then, the bill in BoBo's hand still had real value because it was backed by physical gold stored in a vault. But the greatest illusion of money officially began in 1971, with the event known as the Nixon Shock. That was when money cut its final link to gold. BoBo suddenly realized the bill in his hand could no longer be exchanged for gold at the central bank. Money had become fiat money. It had value simply because the government said it did, and BoBo agreed to believe it. Money was no longer a physical thing. It became an idea protected by state power. Today, this illusion has reached its peak as money has almost disappeared from the physical world. When BoBo works and receives his salary, he no longer holds thick stacks of cash. In reality, most of the world's money now exists only as digital numbers moving across bank servers. When BoBo swipes his card to buy a cup of coffee, no physical object moves at all. The system simply subtracts a number from BoBo's account and adds it to the store's account. And that is when BoBo realizes that the bill in his pocket or the number on his phone is really just a certificate of credit. It is data proving that he has worked, and he uses society's belief in those numbers to ask society to serve him in return. Why are we controlled by money? BoBo always wonders, why do I work hard every single day, yet still feel like I am constantly short on money? The answer is not laziness. It lies in a sophisticated control system, with clamps designed to keep him trapped in the game. Number 1, debt and interest rates force people to keep running nonstop. Imagine BoBo wants to open a small sandwich shop. To get started, BoBo goes to the bank and borrows $10,000. In the modern banking system, the bank does not actually take $10,000 in cash out of a vault and hand it to BoBo. Instead, they simply add the number 10,000 to his account on his phone app. At that very moment, new money has been created out of nothing, based on BoBo's own loan signature. In other words, new money appears when someone borrows. BoBo looks at his phone screen, sees that he has $10,000, and starts using that money to buy an oven, flour, rent a storefront, and make sandwiches to sell to customers. But the real problem is that BoBo does not only have to pay back the original $10,000 he borrowed, because the bank requires him to pay interest as well, for example, a total of $11,000. This is where the harsh truth begins to reveal itself. The original $10,000 was created when the bank issued the loan, but the $1,000 in interest was not created at the same time. To get the $1,000 needed to pay the interest, BoBo is forced to jump into the market and compete for spare dollars from other people's pockets. He has to sell more sandwiches, compete fiercely with Lulu, stay open longer, and pull customers in from somewhere else. But Lulu is also borrowing money. Mimi is also borrowing money, The whole town is borrowing money, and everyone has to pay back the principal plus interest. So everyone starts running together. If BoBo does not run, he will not have money to repay his debt. And failing to repay his debt means losing his house, losing his car, and even losing his sandwich shop. This debt-based monetary system is exactly like a treadmill. At first, the treadmill moves slowly, and BoBo feels stable. But when interest rates, living costs, and competition speed up, BoBo has to run faster just to avoid falling. BoBo thought he was borrowing money to buy an oven, but in reality, he was buying an invisible pressure. The oven sits inside the shop, while the pressure of repaying debt sits heavily in BoBo's mind every morning when he wakes up. It is not because BoBo is lazy, it is because the system is designed so that he must always chase debts that were created in the past. Number 2, laws and taxes force society to earn money. Following the pressure from those debts, BoBo starts to come up with an idea. If making money is this exhausting, why do I not just use sandwiches to trade for everything? Sandwiches can feed people. That is the real practical value. So BoBo bakes 500 sandwiches, loads them onto a vehicle, and brings them to the tax office. BoBo says, "This is the result of my labor. I want to use sandwiches to fulfill my financial obligation." But BoBo will almost certainly be rejected, because the government does not require BoBo to pay taxes and sandwiches. The government requires tax obligations to be calculated and paid in United States dollars. This is exactly what prevents BoBo from stopping his use of the dollar. BoBo may like gold, he may like Bitcoin, he may like bartering goods, he may believe that sandwiches are more useful than paper money. But when tax season comes, BoBo still has to have dollars. And when all of society has to pay taxes in dollars, almost all of society is forced to earn dollars. BoBo sells sandwiches to get dollars. Lulu goes to work to receive wages in dollars. Mimi opens a store to collect dollars. Businesses pay salaries in dollars. Rent, utilities, insurance, tuition, credit card bills, car loans, and home loans all revolve around the dollar. That is why the dollar is powerful. The entire system of law, taxation, banking, and financial contracts is built around it. Even more importantly, BoBo does not directly control the biggest gears of this system. When the central bank changes interest rates, BoBo's loan can become more expensive. When monetary policy changes, asset prices can rise or fall. When there is more money in the system, the purchasing power of BoBo's savings can be gradually eroded. BoBo is not sitting in the room where those decisions are made. BoBo also does not directly vote for every person managing those monetary decisions. But BoBo's wallet, debt, rent, savings, and even his sleep are still affected. And BoBo realizes that he is living inside a social infrastructure that has already been built, with rules of the game that he cannot change. He may not like it, but he still has to drain himself inside that playing field, because every exit has already been carefully guarded by mandatory financial obligations. Inside that game, because every exit is guarded by mandatory financial obligations. Number 3, the brain treats money like a reward. After realizing that he is tightly locked in by the legal and tax system, BoBo suddenly recognizes another truth. Now, the fear of being controlled by money is not inside the bank, or inside the tax office, or inside meetings about interest rates. It is inside BoBo's own brain. Money does not control people only through bills, loans, and laws. Money also controls people through emotion. Every time BoBo sees his paycheck arrive in his account, BoBo feels comfortable and happy. When his balance goes up, BoBo feels safer. When his investment starts making a profit, BoBo feels excited. And those actions are connected to the reward system in the brain. When BoBo expects that he is about to receive money, the brain can create a rush of excitement. BoBo is not only happy because he has money. BoBo is also pulled in by the feeling that more money is coming soon. This is why BoBo may keep opening his banking app again and again. Keep checking stock prices. Keep staring at crypto charts. Not every time BoBo opens the app does he make money, but every time BoBo thinks, "Who knows? Maybe my account will go up this time," his brain gets stimulated again. When the market rises sharply, BoBo is even more likely to fall into the fear of missing out. For example, when Lulu brags that she has just made a 40% profit, or when Mimi says that everyone who got in early is winning big, or when social media is flooded with life-changing success stories, BoBo starts to feel uncomfortable if he is only standing on the outside looking in. BoBo no longer asks, "Do I understand this thing?" BoBo only thinks, "If I do not buy right now, I will be left behind." So BoBo jumps in, not because he has a clear plan, but because excitement is pulling him forward. But the market does not only have green days. When his account turns bright red, another kind of emotion appears. BoBo buys at $100, but the price falls to $80, then $60, then $45. Every time he opens the app, BoBo feels as if someone is squeezing his chest. BoBo starts losing sleep. BoBo is no longer calm enough to analyze anything. BoBo just wants the pain to end. So BoBo sells at the exact moment when panic is at its highest. Not because his original plan told him to sell, but because losing money feels too painful. And at this moment, BoBo realizes something. When prices go up, the brain pulls BoBo in with hope. When prices go down, the brain pushes BoBo out with fear. Without discipline and a plan, BoBo can easily buy high and sell low. Not because BoBo is not smart, but because the human brain was never built to endure flashing financial charts 24 hours a day. Long-term debt pressure makes everything even worse. When BoBo loses sleep because of bills. When BoBo worries about rent. When BoBo fears calls from the bank. When BoBo works while thinking about the interest that keeps growing. BoBo's mind begins to burn out. And then, a dangerous loop appears. Because he lacks money, BoBo needs clear thinking more than ever. But that very financial pressure makes BoBo so exhausted that it becomes hard to make the right decisions. BoBo may borrow more money to pay off old debt. BoBo may jump into a hot investment play because he hopes to win back what he lost. BoBo may buy a lottery ticket because he just wants a quick way out. The more BoBo wants to escape the trap, the easier it is for him to step deeper into it. This is the scariest part. Money does not only lock BoBo from the outside through debt, taxes, and interest rates. Money also locks BoBo from the inside through hope, fear, excitement, and exhaustion. BoBo thinks he is making decisions with logic, but many times BoBo is only reacting to the mood that money has triggered inside his brain. So, to avoid being controlled by money, BoBo cannot simply learn how to make more money. BoBo has to understand where money comes from. He has to understand how debt and interest rates work. He has to understand why all of society has to chase the dollar. And he has to understand how his own brain reacts to profit, loss, and financial pressure. Because even though money is an illusion, the way it controls us is extremely powerful. Number 4. Why can the government print endless money while you still feel broke? By now, BoBo understands that he is trapped inside a system powered by debt, laws, taxes, and even emotions in the brain. But then a bigger question appears in his mind. If the government and central bank can create more money with a few computer commands, why not create a lot of it and give it to everyone? Why does the system seem able to print almost unlimited money while BoBo still feels short on cash? To understand this, imagine BoBo living on a small island. The island has only 10 loaves of bread, and the total money in circulation is $10. That means each loaf costs $1. Everything is simple. If BoBo has $1, he can buy 1 loaf. If Lulu has $2, she can buy 2 loaves. But one day the government adds another $10 to the island. Now the total money rises from $10 to $20. BoBo looks at the money in his pocket and feels happy, because it seems like everyone has become richer. But there is one big problem. The island still has only 10 loaves of bread. When the money doubles but the bread does not, people start competing for the same amount of bread. The baker realizes everyone has more money, so he raises the price. Now each loaf is no longer $1. It becomes $2. BoBo is shocked to realize that his money may have doubled, but the amount of bread he can buy has not changed. The core point is this: printing more money does not automatically create real wealth. It only makes each dollar represent a smaller share of the goods that already exist. Money can be created very quickly, but bread, houses, gasoline, electricity, labor, time, and skills cannot appear that fast. So when the money supply grows faster than real goods, prices begin to rise. Yesterday, a loaf of bread cost $5. Today, it may cost $7, then $9. BoBo looks at the price tag and thinks bread is getting more expensive. But from another angle, the money in his hand is getting weaker. This is inflation. Inflation does not have to take money directly out of BoBo's wallet. It only needs to make the money in his wallet buy fewer things than before. BoBo still holds the same $100, but before, $100 bought more food. Now the grocery cart empties faster. What makes inflation dangerous is that it happens quietly. BoBo does not wake up one morning and see 10% missing from his bank account. Instead, he buys bread and sees the price rise a little. He fills up his car and pays a little more. He pays rent and gets a new price from the landlord. Insurance, food, tuition, and everyday services all move up little by little. At first, BoBo thinks these changes are not a big deal, but after a few years, he can clearly feel it. With the same working hours, he can buy less. With the same salary, saving becomes harder. With the same shopping cart, he must pay more dollars. That is why BoBo can work harder and still feel life getting tighter. BoBo begins to understand that money is not real wealth. Money is only a ticket used to exchange for real wealth. The loaf of bread is real goods. The house is a real asset. BoBo's baking skill is real value. BoBo's working time is the thing that is truly limited. So when the amount of money grows faster than the amount of real value in society, the currency gets diluted. From the outside, people may have more dollars. But if everything also costs more, BoBo is not truly richer. He is just holding bigger numbers to buy the same amount of life as before. Now the original question has an answer. The government can print more money, but it cannot print real wealth. BoBo still feels short because what he needs is not just more dollar bills. What he needs is stronger purchasing power, more real assets, better skills, and the ability to protect his labor from the dilution of money. Number 5. Money is a tool for controlling human labor. After BoBo understands that money can be diluted when too much of it is created, he starts seeing money differently. It is no longer just fake numbers in an account. In reality, money has become a remote control used to direct and distribute the labor of humanity. BoBo notices how human survival has changed over time. His ancestors could once provide for themselves. They built their own homes, made their own clothes, and hunted for food. But modern society has separated BoBo from those basic survival skills through specialization. Now BoBo can only do one job in an office or at a bakery. He cannot produce his own food, clothing, or medicine. This creates dependence. To get the basic things he needs to live, BoBo must sell the only things he truly has, his time and labor, in exchange for money. And this control is subtle because it does not need force or whips. The system only needs to create an environment where money is the only key to accessing resources. When BoBo needs dollars to pay rent, buy food, or pay taxes, he voluntarily puts his mind and body into the machine of society. Money acts like a kind of coordinating energy. Wherever money flows, the labor of millions of people like BoBo gathers there. Because of money, those who control cash flow can guide billions of people into building skyscrapers, developing advanced technology, or running global supply chains. But BoBo also sees the dark side of this great machine. Money has turned labor from a creative activity into a required duty for survival. BoBo realizes he is living in a state of voluntary slavery because he cannot simply stop. If he stops working, the flow of dollars stops too. And almost immediately, his right to live, eat, and have shelter is threatened. The system has turned human labor into a product that can be bought, sold, and moved anywhere in the world with a single money transfer. In the end, BoBo understands that money is the largest human management tool in history. It connects every person on the planet into one massive labor network. He is no longer fully in control of his own time. The remote control called money guides his behavior every morning when he wakes up. BoBo is not only working for one specific boss, he is working for the financial machine that runs the world, where his labor is just a tiny part of the huge energy flow that keeps civilization alive and growing. The real consequences and what you can do after seeing the remote control called money running the world, BoBo is shocked. He realizes he is not just a baker or a regular worker. He has become a person being drained inside a system designed so he never truly reaches the finish line. The biggest consequence BoBo suffers is the theft of time. Because debt and inflation keep pushing prices higher, the value of BoBo's labor is quietly worn down every day. If 10 years ago BoBo only needed to work 8 hours to cover his life, now he may need to work 10 or 12 hours to maintain the same standard of living. Precious time for family and himself is being burned to feed the giant interest machine. BoBo becomes poorer in life, even when the number in his account seems to rise. Even though BoBo cannot immediately step outside the global financial system, he understands that he has to change his position. He must stop being controlled and start understanding the rules of the game so he can take back control. First, BoBo decides to cut off the chains of bad debt. He stops borrowing to buy unnecessary things, like the newest gadgets or a luxury car on payments. BoBo understands that every new debt is another promise to sell his future free time to the bank. By paying off high-interest debt first, BoBo slowly reduces the speed of the treadmill he is standing on. Instead of only holding cash, which the government can print endlessly and weaken at any time, BoBo begins shifting his mindset toward real assets. He looks for scarce things that are harder to dilute, such as gold, real estate, or the transparency of Bitcoin. BoBo wants his sweat and intelligence to be stored in safer places, where no central bank can easily interfere. At the same time, he focuses on improving his own value so he can create more value in less time. When his skills grow, his bargaining power with the system also grows, helping him buy back time from money. Finally, BoBo learns to control the emotions in his brain. After understanding dopamine and the fear of loss, he no longer jumps into investment hype when the crowd is excited. He also no longer panic sells when the market turns red. He builds strong discipline and a clear financial plan, separating his emotions from the flashing numbers on the screen. BoBo looks at his bakery with a new mindset. He still works and still takes part in society, but now he is no longer a blind pawn. By understanding debt, taxes, and psychology, BoBo begins to unlock each link of the chain and move toward real freedom, where money is only a tool, and he is the one steering his own life. So we can see that money is a complete control system built from debt, law, and psychological influence. Once you understand how this system works, you can make financial decisions with a clearer mind. If you still have any questions about money or daily financial problems, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and we will break them down together in the next videos. Goodbye, and see you next time.